California landlords have approved new eviction restrictions that make it darn near impossible for a landlord to remove a tenant so that they can move into their own property or so that they can go out of business. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have another article for you today, and it's coming out of California. So California has some of the strongest eviction and tenant protections in the entire country already, but it's never enough. And I've told you this many times before. They will continue to keep pressing landlords for every dime they can get out of us. They will try to take our property or rights away more and more every year until they reach the ultimate goal, which in my opinion is to have the government own all housing, okay? They're talking about a socialist housing system. They believe that landlords are all rich, evil, and corrupt, and they want to basically kick us down to the curb and take what we have away from us so that they can give to whoever they like. Probably other poor people, who decided they didn't want to save and invest for the future, who didn't decide to work their butts off to buy real estate and then operate their own businesses, okay? It's the whole, ridiculous Robin Hood theme where they think, oh, well, we're going to steal from the rich and give to the poor, as though all rich people are greedy. Instead, what they're doing is they're stealing from the middle class in order to give to the lazy. That's my opinion. They want to steal from the middle class, those people who, saved up money, who worked their butts off in order to buy real estate and then decided to, start a little side hustle, become small landlords. And, these aren't rich people. In fact, some landlords are lower income, and yet they want to take from these people and then, oh, well, you're now forced to provide this service that you may not want to provide. They don't want to make it easy for you to go out of business because they feel the tenant has the right to stay in your property forever. And they don't want you to be able to move back into your own property. Okay, this is how ridiculous this stuff is. And, I'm sick of it. I keep talking about it because these same laws, these same rules and regulations, they're being proposed everywhere throughout the entire country. And you'll see the end result. You'll see, just the same disaster of a housing market that you have in California, where middle class and lower income people cannot afford to buy houses because they don't make enough money. And why is that? Because builders and developers, they do not want to build new housing. They don't want to build it because they have too many rules, too many regulations, and they've made it too difficult for them. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. What do you think the end goal is of all of this ridiculous, anti-landlord, anti-property rights, anti-development legislation? What do you think is going to happen in California? I mean, I'm not talking about right now. Right now, you're going to see, maybe a few people who actually benefit from these laws won't lose their housing. But I'm talking about 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now. Okay? I am 43 years old. 40 years, I'm going to be 83. Okay? Hopefully, if I'm, healthy enough and alive. Okay? So I'm going to see what exactly happens to a place where they decide they don't want to build housing anymore. Okay, is there going to be anyone around who is still able to afford housing other than the super duper rich? I don't know. Is there going to be rampant homelessness? Is there going to be just a huge decline in population? We're going to see. And it's scary thinking that, hey, there's no turning back. There's no going back to the way things were just a mere 10 years ago even, because you don't see these laws being repealed ever. Instead, they're just stacking more and more laws on top of the existing ones. So, yeah, things are only going to get worse, in my opinion. But anyway, let's get into this article and see what it says. This article is coming from Newsday.com, and it says, California lawmakers approve bills including eviction protections and mental health reform. And they have a good breakdown of exactly what this new law or these new laws that were passed are going to do. And they talk about how the governor still has to sign them. And believe me, the governor will probably sign them. But anyway, let's get into it. The California legislature voted Thursday to bolster eviction protections for renters and close a loophole in an existing law that has allowed landlords to circumvent the state's rent cap. The eviction reform bill was among hundreds approved before the end of the late legislative session, including giving striking workers unemployment benefits and reforms to the state's mental health system. Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom has until October 14th to act on the bills by signing them into law, rejecting them with a veto, or allowing the bills to become law without his signature. So yeah, they basically, these laws, they were saying that landlords were using them to circumvent the state's rent control laws. Okay, so it is absolutely true that this is exactly what landlords were doing. And not only that, but it also was put, these exceptions were put into place so that landlords would be able to get back into their own properties or get out of the real estate business. And so you have three different groups of landlords that are being hurt here. Landlords who really truly were trying to use the law or use those exceptions for their intended purpose. You also have landlords who were trying to circumvent the state's rent control laws. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with trying to use existing laws to try to get around the rent control laws that they put into place, because the rent control is so restrictive and it hurts landlords so bad that if you use, like if you say, okay, well, I have a son who needs a house and I'm going to allow my son to temporarily move into this house, right? And then after he has lived there for a year or so and then moved out, then you're able to raise those rents back up to market rates, then there should be no issue. There should be no issue at all. But they want to take the ability for a landlord to do that away. And, they wouldn't have this issue at all if they didn't have rent control in place. But, now they're trying to take away exceptions and reasons why landlords are able to remove tenants and get rid of rent control from their units. The rental bill by Democratic State Senator Maria Elena Durazo would update a 2019 landmark law creating rules around evictions and establishing a rent cap at 5% plus the inflation rate with a 10% maximum. The governor was the architect of the 2019 law on rent protections, but he has not indicated whether he will sign the new eviction legislation, the bill sponsor said. Under the 2019 law, landlords can evict tenants for at-fault or no-fault reasons. At-fault reasons include failure to pay rent on time. Under no-fault rules, landlords can terminate leases merely by saying they need to move into units, make repairs, or take the units off the rental market. So yeah, they're talking about, hey, well, the governor, may or may not sign this, but they say at the same time, the governor is the architect of the 2019 law that, basically is an anti-landlord law. So the truth of the matter is that it looks like it is a 99% chance that Governor Gavin Newsom, who's a far left, anti-property rights type of person, is going to pass this, and it's going to be very, very bad for landlords. Renter advocates said some landlords have exploited the no-fault evictions to get around the state's rent cap. They pointed to a case in Santa Clara County in which landlords evicted tenants, citing the need to move in their relatives, but then relisted the units at nearly double the price. Under Durazo's new bill, landlords moving into their unit or renting to family must identify the people moving in. The rental must be occupied within 3 months of eviction, and they must live in the unit for at least a year. Those who evict tenants to renovate properties must include copies of permits or contracts, among other details, when serving eviction notices. So yeah, I've gone over before, where they've said, hey, we want you to have a permit before you can actually remove this tenant. And I'm like, hey, like a lot of the times you're not going to get a permit until the work is about to be done. So how am I supposed to get any of the work done until the tenant is actually removed from the property? Do you understand what I'm saying? You can't go and get the permits preemptively and, get the place boarded up and started ripping the place apart until you get that tenant up out of there when you're trying to do a rehab. Okay. And as for being able to get your new tenant or your new family member moved in after you get the tenant moved out within 3 months, that's a ridiculous time frame right there. Just for example, let's say your tenant, their lease ends in September, right? But you need your college aged son to be able to move into the unit in June after the semester has ended, right? Well, that's a little bit more than 3 months, but you don't want that tenant to have to, you don't want to have to be forced into having that tenant sign a full new 1 year lease. And then, your son wouldn't be able to move in come summertime. So yeah, it doesn't make any sense. These rules are very arbitrary. They're very stupid. And to me, all it is just trying to say, hey, we have more control of your property than you do. And you don't have the right to do what you want to do with your property. Hey, and not only that, but a lot of work, if I'm going in here and I'm emptying the place out so that I can get the place, go out of business, I want the place to be completely empty. I'm going to get this tenant up out of there. Then I'm going to sell it. And then maybe the next landlord, the next property owner will be the one who actually does the rehab. So maybe I'm not getting permits or anything at all. Maybe I'm just emptying the place out. Oh, geez, so that the work can be done by the next owner. Regardless, right? The end result of all of this it's the same end result that I always talk about. There are going to be more, especially small mom and pop landlords who decide they just want out. They just want to get completely out of this business. They're going to sell their properties to owner occupants, okay? The larger landlords are going to try to do, more condo conversions where they're selling the individual units off, or they will, convert it over to a co-op. Some people will just say, hey, you know what? I'm not dealing with this anymore. I'm getting out of the state. Developers will say, I'm not building here. I am not building here because the costs are ridiculous. The rules are ridiculous. The regulations are ridiculous. I'm not making money because there isn't a large pool of landlords who want to deal with all this garbage. And you know what? That's fine. That's absolutely fine. The affordable housing shortage will continue. And guess what? When people can't find affordable housing, the majority of people, they're not going to just instantly become homeless. No, they're going to move. They're going to move to places like Arizona, where housing is less expensive and where regulations are much, much less strict. Same with Nevada, same with Texas, same with all the other places and areas surrounding California. That's why you see their population decline. And that's what I think is going to happen in, 40 some years, right? We're going to see just a larger population decline unless things really change out there. And like I said, I don't think that's going to happen.